Yeah, just only, it's after 5, so if you want a chair case, we can get the meeting started. We have no, let me just check. Anyone on joining us via Zoom, do you have any oral communications that you'd like to share? You'd have 3 minutes to do so. You can either raise your hand or write in the comment section. Right now I see none, chair case, no oral communications at this moment. Now we can move on to approval of the October 25th, 2021 minutes. Those are included in the agenda packet. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or adjustments need to be made.
There's 2 adjustments I'd like to make. On page 3, is it under public outreach?
Mm-hmm.
The second motion was for a half-page mailer, not a full-page mailer.
I'll make that adjustment.
And then under Commissioner Reports and Disclosures, I had interacted with Councilmember Garcia, not Councilmember Insco.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, that's it.
Perfect. Well, including those adjustments, do we have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Second?
A second.
Great. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion approved. And it looks like right now Commissioner Saldana is not joining us for right now, so we'll move forward on to item number 4, which is public outreach. So we'll have a lot to talk about with public outreach tonight. Specifically, right now on this item, it'll be focused on the public outreach that you've already approved. Now we're just moving forward on selecting the actual postcards. So if you can see on the screen, I'll go down to the computer in a moment, and I've handed out to all of you, thanks to Teresa Collins from the Communications Department, an actual sample of what the postcard would look like. The weight and texture and feel is different that you're feeling right now. That's not the paper that will be mailed out, but that is the design. So we have 2 different designs, and I will go down and I'll bring them both up on the screen for those watching via Zoom to see as well. So the first one, you'll have an image on the left-hand side. As you can see, it's just an image of the street, and then it has all of the public hearings listed. It's done both in English and in Spanish. The back side of the postcard basically is the same for either version that you select. And then we've also included all of the other languages that are encouraging people to visit the city's website specifically about redistricting. A nice benefit is one of the city staffers who was reviewing this was able to also translate the Chinese from simplified Mandarin into traditional Mandarin. So from that vantage point, even though we'd already received a translation from our translation services, we have both versions available. So we're trying to reach the broadest possible network of our community. So that's what the back of the postcard would look like. Here is the second version, and as you can see, the slight differentiation is the imagery on the top and the bottom. Same information here, and both of these, as you can see, have a QR code, and it's a dynamic QR code. So when people are actually scanning that and using that, we will have analytics tied to that, so we will know if they've scanned it and then they've visited the website. So that'll be a nice way for us to kind of track the ROI on this type of public outreach. So that basically, those are the 2 options. What we would need tonight is a confirmation from the commission as to which one you would like to move forward with, and then Teresa and her team will basically get this out, and it'll go out here in December. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions on that. And I'm going to head back over to the main computer just to see if anyone from the public has questions as well. But in the interim, anyone from the commission, feel free to jump in. Okay, we have one member of the public, Val, who said, I like the second version. So that was the one with the image on the top and the bottom, just for everyone's awareness. And Commissioner Saldana has joined the meeting as well.
I think they both look really great. I honestly do not have a preference. I think, though, that the one with the 2 pictures on the top and bottom presents a larger QR code, so it might be easier for people to look at that, see it, and then know what to do with it. However, the one with the picture on the left has a very large, or a larger banner saying "Join the conversation," which that is exactly what we want people to do. So if I had to vote, I would go actually with the one with the larger QR code. And those are my comments.
Yeah, it's your case.
So are we allowed to, is this like a hard choice vote tonight? There's no adjusting?
Yeah, so as far as edits are concerned, this would be a hard decision to select one or the other for timing purposes to get this to the mail house and to have it distributed in a timely manner before the holidays.
Got it. So I agree with Commissioner Clemens. I think that the larger QR code, the better. But with that being said, just like for ease, to read it, for some reason, this is just the way my brain works, but the more, I'm sorry, the longer version with the 3 sentences at the top, I just feel like it's easier to read than like bouncing around with everything. And then my second comment is join the, well, we can't change that, so never mind.
Any other questions, thoughts, insights?
My only comment was kind of like what you were just saying, is that the easement of like, the one that has the 2 pictures on the top and bottom, I go directly to the dates. I don't read the information on the left-hand side first. And so I have no clue what those dates are, versus the other one with the bigger join the conversation. You read what it's about and then the dates come. So that's just my comment on that.
Okay, so I'm not being weird then.
No.
Okay. Yeah, the east to west, it's just, it flows easier. But with the second one, you're like bouncing around.
Yeah.
And it looks like more information on the left-hand side.
But I have to say, the one that has the picture on the top and bottom has bigger font, which is always a plus.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Dallin?
I do like this one a lot. It's because the font is bigger. The only thing that I'm concerned is the picture. It doesn't represent anything. I like the pictures over here a lot. This is more like a border. It looks like a border.
Yeah.
So unless we can do some type, something to kind of change the picture, but the font is beautiful.
Yeah.
The layout on this one is very, very nice.
Okay, great. That's very helpful to be aware of. I think as of right now, and Teresa Collins is on the call if we have any questions specifically for her, but my understanding is the way these have been put together are probably, it would be best to choose either of those. So if the imagery isn't satisfactory on that second alternative where it's on the top and bottom, it might be preferable to go with the other alternative. But and Teresa, if you want to chime in, feel free to as well. Any other questions or thoughts? Juan?
Well, first, thank you so much. I think both of these look wonderful, whichever option we end up going with. My question is whether we can make any edits to the backside of both. Kind of building on some of the earlier comments, if we can make the help map Escondido's future statement just a little bit larger, similar to the join the conversation discussion on the other side, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you. Teresa, I see you on the call. If you're able to answer any of those questions, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much.
Yeah, sure thing, Zach. We can definitely look at bumping up that font size on the address side of the postcard. What our team did was put in what works for, there's kind of mail house grid lines that have to be read for the mailing indicia and mail delivery, but we did leave a little bit of room because we did add in that additional line of the more simplified Chinese translation, as Zach had referenced. So I can check with our team, but I believe we would be able to bump up that just a bit.
Great. Any other questions or thoughts, insight from the commission?
Yeah, just real quick. Again, Teresa, thank you for these. They look great. So with that being said, it sounds like we can make adjustments. Is that right?
On that back side, the address side, I can see about making the adjustment. The other side, the graphic side with the dates is pretty tight. Moving any text or adding any or taking away would be a complete redesign for us at this point. We have a drop dead date of next week to get this to our printer and mail house to be sure that it is in the mail by mid-December, so we get ahead of the holidays.
Got it, okay. Yeah, I was just gonna ask if there was any way we could expand the QR code on the east to west during the conversation, the larger one. But if not, it is what it is.
If we can, I'll definitely ask the team in the morning tomorrow, and if we can, we will definitely do that.
Great, thank you.
Any other insights, questions?
For the QR code, are you talking about this one on this one? I think that would, because I like this one because of the image. And just the flow of the words I feel like are easier to follow. So I mean, they're both really nice, but I like this one because of the way it's set up and everything. I think the QR code was a little bit bigger. It would be a little bit more helpful to guide people to go to that site.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Reyes. So any other thoughts, comments? Otherwise, if from the conversation I'm hearing right now, perhaps it sounds like that version where it's the east to west, if we're able to make the modifications as requested, slightly increasing the size of the QR code and then adjusting the font size on the back, would that suffice as the version that the commission would want to move forward with? Okay. If it's all right, could we take do a formal motion and vote on that, and then we'll be able to let Teresa get that off to the printers. So anyone want to make a motion?
I motion to use the version with the image on the left of Grand Avenue as our preferred postcard.
I second.
Great. All in favor? All right. All opposed? Or are you in favor, Commissioner Dowan? I'm sorry. Oh, perfect. Commissioner Dowan, thank you. And then Commissioner Saldana, are you in favor of that item? So sorry, I think we might have.
I'm in favor. I think I have my hand up.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I see it now.
That's okay. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Motion approved 7-0. All right. Now we're going to move on to the 2020 Census Data update. I believe Jane Hood has joined us. So she'll be joining here. And take it away, Jane.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us back. I hope you're all doing well after the holidays. So we do not have any new information to present since our last presentation to you all. Again, we have completed the initial assessment based on the 2020 census data for your current boundaries. So we're just going to review that again and see if there's any new members joining of the public who would be interested in hearing this, and of course any additional questions that there may be. So I'll share my screen. Oh, I see that the host has disabled screen sharing. If that could be, if I could be allowed to share, that would be great.
Just one moment, I'll do that. And then Jane, if you don't mind, when when we get you, I'll turn you into the host, and then if you don't mind, just send it back to me after you're done. That would be great.
Certainly, thank you.
All right, sure. Did it come over to you for the hosting?
I do not see that yet.
Okay.
I'm also happy to just speak verbally about
Yeah,
this.
if you don't mind, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No problem. So yes, as a reminder for commissioners or any new members of the public who are joining tonight, the first criteria in redistricting is to have reasonably equal populations. So that's the first thing we're taking a look at with your current boundaries, is to see how the 2020 census data looks with respect to your boundaries. So how over or underpopulated the current districts are. That's sort of a good assessment of your starting point, where you're starting from in redistricting. So the The 2020 census data was released for redistricting in late September, and that information is available on statewidedatabase.org. If you are interested in taking a look at that, that is the California statewide database. That's the data management for the census and redistricting for California. And that information did let us know that Escondido's population for purposes of redistricting for this cycle is 151,516 persons. And so with your 4 districts, that brings the ideal population or the average sort of that number to 37,879. So that's the number that we're looking to get these districts to. Obviously, they're going to be a little above or below that number. They're not going to be perfectly on that number. So generally, we're looking at a plus or minus 5% above that ideal population or below is a good safe harbor generally to be in with population. So the assessment of your current boundaries let us know that 2 of your districts are right now outside of that plus or minus 5% deviation from the ideal population. So I'll just let you know those deviations now. Unfortunately, I can't show the map, but for District 1, which is in the center of Escondido, that is underpopulated currently at minus 7.18%. So that's 7.18% below the ideal population that we want to end up at after redistricting. District 2, which is your northern district, is overpopulated by 7.43%. So that is a little over where you want to be in that district. And then districts 3 and 4 are pretty close to the ideal population. So we have District 3 at minus 0.55%. So just 0.5% below the ideal population. And then we have District 4 at 0.29% over the ideal population. So both of those are very, very close to the ideal population and have grown proportionally sort of to the rest of the city. But then you see districts 1 and 2 are where we need to make a little bit of adjustments to maintain population balance. So that's where the current boundaries are with respect to the 2020 census data. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that, what I just shared. I also want to give an update. Obviously, the next step will be the voting rights initial analysis, and we will keep you posted on the results of that. We're still undergoing that process at this time. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions now.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. Appreciate that. Before we turn it over to the commission, any questions from those attending via Zoom? Any comments, questions? You have 3 minutes if you'd like. Just raise your hand and I'll make sure we can call you, or you can write in the chat, whatever you prefer. At this moment, I see none. Chair, and if that changes by anyone from the Zoom, feel free to just let me know as the conversation unfolds. We can get you into the conversation as well. Any questions for Jane from the commission?
I have a question. Jane, when do we think that the analysis for voting rights will be complete?
Oh, Jane, I believe you're still muted, so sorry.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we're still working on that currently, and it should be done shortly. Obviously, can't give an exact date right now, but we will let you know and keep you posted on that as soon as it's available.
And then, Jane, what will that tell us? So I think we had discussed previously that we were looking to see if there were any minority-majority districts potentially.
Yeah, I might pass that to your city attorney to answer. Obviously, that's a legal determination that they will make.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Pardon?
It's a legal determination that we make if there are any minority-majority districts.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. I was in the chat feature on Zoom right now with a constituent. As it relates to the majority district, if I'm not mistaken, District 1 falls into that category currently. Jane, is that correct?
Yes, that is currently. So when these were drawn, obviously the Federal Voting Rights Act was followed strictly, and there was an analysis done which gave the results of District 1 being the VRA district for Escondido, and so that is the results from the last districting. So that's currently a majority minority district. So the question was just what do the results of an initial voting rights analysis tell us? And I just wanted to pass that to the city attorney to just answer that legal question.
Yeah, so the city attorney isn't present at the moment, but I can direct that comment to him, and then I can email back to you guys if you would like, but before our next meeting, I'll do that.
Couple questions real quick. So when we talk about minority, majority, as you were, majority, minority districts, we're basically referring to the polarized racial voting analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's also another term would be Section 2, which is Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act. So that's what we're referring to. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, got it. And so this question is for Zach, because I haven't, in everything that I've read, I haven't come across like a requirement or I don't know, an idea of if we're required by law or the consent decree to do that in this new cycle. Would you be able to shed some light on that?
Yeah, I would defer to the city attorney on that myself, but as it relates to the approach that we're utilizing now for the redistricting, in my estimation, we're utilizing the same principles that established the districts at the beginning. We're only adjusting the data based off of the census. So if we're to have a majority minority district still moving forward, if we were required to do so in 2013, I would anticipate that would be a requirement moving forward. But once again, that's just my supposition. I'd have to have the city attorney confirm that.
Got you. Okay, and I asked because I was under the impression that Q2 would be doing that and kind of giving us that recommendation based on the shifts in the demographics, right? Yeah. Like if District 1 was one of these districts last cycle, people move, and it could have changed, right? So I guess just so that we're crystal clear, the question to the city attorney is, are we required by law to conduct this analysis, right? And if so, who conducts said analysis? Because I was under the impression that Q2 would be providing that service.
I was under the same assumption.
That's my understanding as well. And Jane, you can correct me, but I believe that is the approach that we're taking.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I understand it's kind of a confusing process. So let me just clarify. We are conducting an initial voting rights analysis where we do look at the demographics of the city, and that is in collaboration with the city attorney. So we will give them the demographic information, and then they will basically tell you the legal results of that. We can't, since we're not lawyers, we can't, advise you legally, but we are providing the analysis that the city attorney will be working with. So we'll keep you posted on that information as it becomes available.
Okay, so let's kind of run this to ground then real quick. So Zach, are we going to be provided that same data? Because I don't want there to be any, okay.
Yeah, of course. Any information that's coming from Q2 data is going to the commission first. The city attorney is in an advisory capacity to the commission. Ultimately, it's your discretion and decision with the consultation of the city attorney as needed, but there won't be information that will not go to you that is going to the city attorney, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can just, I was just pulling up the numbers for your current District 1, which is, as I mentioned, the Section 2 district right now as it's drawn. And it currently has a 53% Latino citizen voting age population. And it is obviously, as I mentioned, 7% underpopulated. So that's the information that we have available at this time. But obviously more will follow up in the next meetings.
Any other questions from the committee? Oh, real quick, we do have one from the public. Laura Hunter, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. So Laura Hunter from the City of Escondido. So I just wanted to ask, again, I think I asked for this last time, but for example, just like that statistic, Jane, you just shared with us about 53% citizen voting age, I really hope the commission will get the data on the current districts, because there are some problems with how the current districts were drawn last time around. Yes, we got one majority minority or voting rights district, but I mean, we're over half people of color now. So we really have a lot of work to do to look at this. So I would ask that the commissioners and the public get the current demographics for all the districts now, so we can see how it was handled in the past, and that can help us do a better job, hopefully, in the future. The other thing is, I just want to suggest that we don't, I mean, Voting Rights Act, obviously critically important. We're going to have at least one district that meets that, but fair representation should be our other goal, whether it's a strictly voting rights issue or whatever. Fair representation of our city that is over 50% people of color right now should really be something that we take seriously and look at very deeply, whether or not it's a super requirement under Section 2 or whatever. It's a fair and right thing to do. So I hope we can see those numbers at the next meeting or soon. Maybe you can share that information even outside of a meeting so we can look at it and study it before the next meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Back to the commission. Any other questions, comments for Jane?
So just to sum it up, we are going to get that the RPV data.
Yes.
Do you know off the top of your head if that's something that we can publish to the public?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. In my opinion, it is. Yeah.
Okay. And then that being said, is it the city attorney's decision to conduct this, or is it ours? I was just a little hazy with that.
So the ultimate decision is going to be that of the commission in consultation with the city attorney. They will, the city attorney will guide you and provide you with the parameters. Because I don't know what those parameters are, I can't tell you that at this moment, but it'll ultimately be the decision of the Independent Redistricting Commission. You have the authority as it relates to how this process unfolds.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just a little confused as far as the city attorney's role.
Yeah, I think if I kind of taking a step back more, 30,000 foot from Jane's perspective, they're going to conduct this analysis and they're going to provide it to the commission. The city attorney will review it to make sure that it's in compliance with Federal Voting Rights Act, California Voting Rights Act, the consent decree, and then basically advise the commission accordingly. Because the commission cannot make a decision that is out of concert with the consent decree or the California Voting Rights Act or the Federal Voting Rights Act. So they're just going to basically help to vet that process for you. But ultimately, the decision will be yours. And legally, if you come to a decision that is out of concert with that decision would be void. You wouldn't be able to do so. So they're just there to kind of provide the guardrails, but ultimately it's your discretion and your decision. That makes sense.
So basically, just looking at the data and making sure we're not saying, "Hey, we don't want to do this analysis," in spite of what the data says.
Correct.
Okay, so just oversight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Great. Any other questions or thoughts? None from the public, anything else from the commission? And once again, bear in mind for this, this is a kind of a repeat of some of the information we had during our last meeting. Intentionally, we want to make sure more people in the public are aware of this, and the commission, we really have a clear understanding. It's going to be at our next public hearing starting in January when we're actually fleshing all of this out and going to start actually going through the map drawing process. So that's also for the public certification that this is still just in the, we're still in the very early stages, and it's going to start we're going to hit the road real aggressively here in January. And I did see one more comment come through. One moment. Georgine Tomasi says, it's important that this information is provided to the public after compiled and viewed by the commissioners as soon as possible before the next meeting. Correct. That will happen. It'll be posted on the redistricting page of the city's website. We'll make sure that information is available. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think we can move on to our next item. And Commissioner Saldana, I don't want to be missing you. Any questions or thoughts or anything that you want to share?
No, nothing to share. I think I see Laura Hunter has her hand up, unless it's just.
Yeah, I think that was up earlier, and we called her. I think she might have kept it up. So yeah, good catch though. Thank you. Great.
Sorry.
Make sure we don't skip anything.
Yeah, of course. No, I appreciate that. Great. So what we can do is pivot on to the next item, which is item number 6, and talk about the budget. So I want to give you an update as it relates to the budget. You may recall during the last meeting on October 25th, we went through a very robust discussion considering the possibility of having virtual translation services and in-person translation services. By including both, it basically brings us right to that $200,000 threshold, which is what the budget is set at. The commission voted to ask me to go to the council and request an additional $50,000, not with that money specifically earmarked for anything, because we didn't have anything specific at that moment, just to kind of ask for a bigger lump sum so we could do additional public outreach. Went to the city council on November 17th at a presentation. The council came back and they did not approve the $50,000 at that time, but they did not oppose it. They basically tabled the item till this Wednesday on December 1st. As part of that discussion, what the mayor, the deputy mayor, and some of the council members were saying is that they would like specificity tied to any additional funding that we are requesting. Just for the commission's awareness is that from the time that you approved that $50,000 request to the time that I went to the city council to ask for that, the communications department, Teresa Collins and Michael Thorne, put together a feasible list of different items that we could actually execute on. And I presented that list to the council. That included the following 3 items. It included doing a 6-week ad campaign with a Times Advocate for $5,000, 4-week ad campaign with the Union Tribune for $5,000, Univision campaign for, I believe it was radio and television, for $7,500, and there were other elements that were included in that, but those were more like free things that we were doing more on social media. They did explore the possibility of text messages as at the request of the commission last time. They ran into some issues with the opt-in clause for texting. To just blanket text individuals, we actually need to have their consent to text them, or we have to text them individually, which certain organizations can do. As a government entity, we have some limitations there. We looked at through text as a possible solution, but that seemed like it wasn't going to be feasible in the time allotted, but that would have cost $10,000 plus if we were to have gone down that direction. All that to say, the council, the mayor, and the deputy mayor said that because we were asking for $50,000 and we didn't have $50,000 worth of items to be included in that, they wanted the commission chair to come back on December 1st to have a more detailed line item of, okay, we're going to request X amount for this much, and if we need to come back at a later time, we can request additional funding. So all that to say, and I've briefed the chair on this, we've had discussions about this over the last few weeks. The context for us to be aware of tonight is whether you want to A, go back to the council and ask for the same amount that you've already requested, B, come at a different amount and specify that amount with certain items that you would like, or C, not request additional funding and retain the same marketing public outreach approach that we have. So those are kind of our 3 scenarios that we have, and we can go down either road, but it's really up to the commission's discretion. The only thing I will say is that because of the timeline that we're operating with, we need to have a decision tonight because December 1st is happening. The next council meeting is December 15th, and by that time, we would be missing out on the opportunity to do the advertisements specifically in the Union Tribune and the Times Advocate. And if you're at a point where you're debating between those 3 entities, the scale at which we can do our advertisements with the Times Advocate is much more significant as opposed to doing the Union Tribune. If you could envision, like a quarter page ad, like you have the flyers that are right there with all the information. If you could envision like an inch long, wide, thing in the Union Tribune on one weekend out of the month, as opposed to the Times Advocate, which will have much more coverage because of the we're being a big fish in a small pond as opposed to a small fish in a big pond in that one. And the Univision obviously gets us access to a specific Spanish-speaking targeted market. So that's all I will share as far as broadly. And actually, I did have Teresa Collins correct me. I did with Univision. It's a radio and social media, not the television. I apologize. That was an incorrect assertion on my part. So that's what I have to share, and I'd love to get your thoughts.
Real quick, is it possible for you to pull up that budget graphic that we've been looking at?
Yeah, let me get that. Okay, so here is the budget with in-person translation, not with virtual. So this was what we had previously established, totaling about $176,000. Then with virtual and in-person, it brings it to roughly $200,000. So that is the current budget as constructed, with $20,000 allocated towards public outreach, and the lion's share of that $20,000 is going towards that postcard that we just approved tonight. And then we'll have additional elements of, doing free advertisement, whether it's on Peach Jar, social media, and other avenues that Teresa and Michael have previously articulated.
So just so we're clear, so for example, with the text option,
Yeah.
in all likelihood being out,
Yeah.
now our ask is going to be 40,000. Is that correct?
So the ask could be it's really up to the commission's discretion. The feedback I received from the mayor and the deputy mayor and the council was that they wanted, instead of us coming and saying a blanket $50,000, which I originally said that during our last meeting because of the timeline, and also we didn't have a comprehensive understanding of what else we could do. So instead of coming out and asking for a larger amount than the items we're going to request, they're saying we should come back specifically and say, okay, let's say we just want to do Univision and Times Advocate, let's request $12,500, and they would just kind of approve it, and then if we need more at a later time, then they would approve that. So I would say that's probably one way of going about it, or we could just lower it down to 40 and ask. I would think, based off of the feedback I had from the council during the last meeting, I would say it might be more strategic to kind of like target our request and
Right.
tie it to a specific item. Yeah.
So let me just take a step back overview. So let's say we came to the conclusion that we're going to ask for the 250,000. Then we need to present an itemized line-by-line proposal, right? So what I'm asking is, for example, the text option is out, right? So hypothetically, our ask would be 40,000 because that we no longer need funds for that text. Is that correct?
So that's a correct way of looking at it from the standpoint of if we had included that 10,000 as part of the larger $50,000 ask. The difference with the $50,000, why we went for that figure, is we didn't have specific items tied into that. It was just kind of let's have a broader budget allocation over this way so we have flexibility and that we don't have to come back again. Right now, if we had based off of that with the text messaging and we didn't have the numbers from the Union Tribune, Times Advocate, or Univision during the last commission meeting when this request was initially established, that would bring us to $27,500, if I'm not mistaken, if we were looking at text message at 10,000, Univision at 7,500, and then Times Advocate 5, and then Union Tribune another 5. So that would be kind of the maximum that we'd be looking at as having specific financing going towards any specific items, if that, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So, and I get it. I definitely understand the council's position and the mayor's position. And, you know, we do have to have, given the crux that we're in now, right? Like we have to have this decision made as far as the UT, the Times Advocate, so that we can contract with them in time for it to be released. That being said, you know, we kind of caught it very close timing with today's meeting and then us being able to go to the council to get approval for different funds on Wednesday. So just so the public is clear and we're kind of clear and reminded, you know, that access that is a contingency buffer should this situation happen again in the future, because again, time is of the essence. We're about, you know, 3 months, 4 months from completing this process. So that I don't know, hopefully that helps the public and clears things up and gives anybody an opportunity to let me know if what I'm thinking there is incorrect. Is that spot on?
Oh, yeah, spot on. So love to hear from the commission. I might go check and see if we hear anything from the public real quick and then get them into the conversation, then turn it back over to the commission. One moment.
I can't find my hand.
I do see one hand, a couple hands raised. All right, so let's start with Anna Marie Velasco, and then I think I saw Laura, your hand was up too. So let's start with Anna Marie. Please unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes starting now.
Yeah. So I was wondering if we can do some advertising for these through the school district. I don't know, it used to be that you sent flyers to the parents, but I think now they do it on email. Is that a viable possibility or no?
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Velasco. Yes, so we will be doing advertisements via Peach Jar, which goes to the school district. So that is built into the original $20,000 allocation. That's going to be a part of the public outreach will be through the school district.
And it will be in English and Spanish?
Yes, That's my understanding is yes, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, because I'm not familiar with Peach Jar, but I do see Teresa on the call.
Correct, Zach. Peach Jar requires that everything is in both languages, and the flyers will be very similar to what was handed out at the street fair, and they will be in English and Spanish.
And I see Commissioner Jurgensen, who also is a teacher in the area, so love to hear your thoughts as well.
The elementary school uses Peach Jar, but the high school does not.
Got it.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. At the elementary school district, since we are separate entities, that they use Peach Jar, because I had never heard of that before since I'm in the high school district, and so I went and asked our administration, and we don't use Peach Jar.
Let me ask, bring Teresa into the conversation real quick. Teresa, are you aware of what they utilize for the high school district by any chance?
Correct. I've been talking with Paula, who does community outreach for the high school district, about various other things, and she is willing to help us figure out the best way to get the information out through the high schools.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Velasco, anything else for your comments? I just didn't want to cut your time off. Okay, perfect. So Ms. Laura Hunter, you're next, and then Georgine Tomasi.
Yeah, just a quick comment. So I strongly recommend, if we can do it, to dedicate some funding for Univision TV. That is a major news outlet for Spanish-speaking community. When I worked for 30 years for Environmental Health Coalition, we relied heavily on outreach to our communities using Univision. So if there's a way we could add money for that, that'd be great. And the other thing too, I'm sure you all know, but they do really long stories. And so I hope that they're like our #1 media outreach outlet, because especially if we have commissioners that can do interviews in Spanish, then they get very, they've been very positive, and they would be a really great outlet for that. So I hope that we can try to rope in Univision TV also. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That's a great point. And one thing I think as a commission is thinking this through, even outside of just allocating financing, but us conducting our own press releases, reaching out to these media agencies, we've already seen interest from the Union Tribune and others. Perhaps we would get that type of interest, and certain commissioners might want to speak to them, and that might be a great approach for us to reach out to the community. Great idea. Georgine Tomasi, your turn.
Yes, I just wanted to expand on Anna Marie Velasco's. Could you ask both districts for a permanent place or a place on their website? Because it really reaches, parents and other teachers, people who live in the community, all access their websites, the district's websites. So that's just another possibility without, spending a lot of money and everything, if there could be a permanent place on their website.
Great idea. Thank you, Georgine. Teresa, you don't have to answer this, but maybe as you're going through the process with your discussion with the school districts, maybe you can broach that subject with them and see if it's something they're amenable to. That would be great. Thank you very much. I see no other comments from the public. Turn it back over to the commission. Any questions, thoughts, or insights would be great.
So Bobby, are you going to meet with them then you're going to come to the council meeting on Wednesday? Yes. Okay. And so I guess my concern, right, is that we get into a very time crunch situation, which we just barely avoided in this situation. And we're not going to have the time to ask for more funding. So I have 2 questions. The first one is, I guess we'll need to vote on, outlining what the $50,000 would be for, of which I think we're trying to account for, what is that, 17.5 of it, from what Zach told us earlier. Yeah. So that would leave like 22.5.
Yeah, and that's if they were to approve the $50,000 total budget. Mm-hmm. The feedback they were saying is, instead of coming in at 50, come in at 17.5 or come in at 12.5, and then come back again at a later time with specific financing, with specific items tied to the financing.
Okay, and then so if we approach them with a 17.5 number and they approve it, are we required to spend the money on what we outlined for them?
I would say it would be the appropriate thing to do, is that if we're telling them we're going to spend the money this way, we should. And to answer that question, even on a broader scale, the consent decree stipulates that the city council shall allocate funding to the redistricting commission as is necessary to accomplish its task, and that keyword is necessary, and that's where we're in this discussion right now, where the council has a little bit of oversight over the commission to say, is it necessary? Because we could come and say we want $1 million, and they could say no, so
Right.
that kind of a thing.
Okay, great. So there was a article about this, I think, in the Times Advocate. I don't know if you guys saw it for like a recap of it. And one of the things I think that the city manager chimed in on was the fact that we are an independent commission and that we were appointed here by 3 judges and that we are very trustworthy individuals. So Bobby, I would just ask if anything like that comes up where they're, questioning our intentions, I would just try to remind them that, we were appointed in this position to make these decisions, and that especially if we're voting in a unanimous way, I think that says a lot about our role and the necessity that we feel is there. Okay.
Definitely, I would definitely echo that concern, and I understand the city council's concern as well. They owe it to the constituents to make sure that they're not out there cutting blank checks. With that being said, I think that kind of like my proposal, and then I'll give some recommendations, is based on that $50,000 number, right? Whatever we agree to today, as far as approving, like with the public outreach, the Univision and that, whatever we don't approve, we just subtract that from the 50,000. So, for example, that's why I asked about the text messaging, right? And that way we can still have a healthy contingency buffer with, given the time sensitivity that I'm going to emphasize, and I hope they can understand that. Like, we could, if the timing was just off a little bit different, we could have ran out of time to contract with the UT and the Times Advocate, right? So, and we don't want to run into that situation and just, get in the habit of planning based on luck. So with that being said, my recommendations would be, we already have cut that 10K out. I completely agree with you. I think in the UT, we're going to get buried. And it's kind of not very cost efficient going to all of San Diego when our job is to focus on the City of Escondido residents. And then I just want to echo, I believe it was Laura from the audience, her concern. I want to echo her concern as far as our Spanish-speaking voters, and remind everyone, if you look at the reason why we have the consent decree, it was based on that Spanish-speaking population, right? But with that being said, and Zach, let me know if I'm correct here, we don't have time to negotiate a contract and do all that for the TV ad, right?
Correct.
It's pretty much a do or die right now.
Yep.
Especially in light of Wednesday's meeting.
Yes.
So hopefully that makes sense out there for everyone from the public. Great suggestion, but unfortunately we just don't have the time for that.
And I have, Commissioner Reynoso, yes.
Wait, can you clarify that last point? We don't have the time to approve or negotiate the $7,500 contract for radio and social media?
No, to do the television advertisements that Laura had emphasized.
Well, there's also always the possibility to earn media, and if we present the story in an intriguing enough approach, and those of us on the commission who do speak Spanish offer ourselves as potential people to speak on that issue, then knowing people who work in the media, then it's a very intriguing story. They'll probably take it. So I don't think we necessarily have to pay them for that piece.
Yeah. Great point. And Commissioner Reynoso, completely agree. Am I interrupting?
Yeah, and to help us with this separately, to help us more broadly with this budget discussion, I was wondering if you can pull up the slide from that presentation to the City Council that has all the various public outreach components. That way we can just go bullet point by bullet point, line item by line item of what the estimated costs are to help us more accurately make that budget
Most
decision?
definitely. Yeah, I'll do that right now. And in the interim, Teresa Collins raised her hand. I think she had a question, an answer to one of the commissioner's questions. Teresa, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I just wanted to clarify something about both Univision and the UT. The UT proposal, as you know, was stated, it's kind of a very big market when we're trying to target a very specific portion of the county. Part of what they included was running a Saturday ad in the SDUT in Espanol, which is delivered to selected Spanish language households in North County, including Escondido. It would also hit some of the South Bay as well. And in addition would be some geographic digital ads on the Union Tribune's website that would follow people with Escondido zip code. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little more information about what the UT proposal entailed. And then in addition with the Univision conversation, we would have to increase the ask dramatically to afford television spots. And in addition, we wouldn't have adequate time to produce those spots with the requirements that we would have to create the digital assets for them at this point in the game. But we definitely, as has been discussed, will pitch them and, you know, and kind of help tell this story in an interesting way to hopefully get that earned media as was discussed.
Thank you, Teresa. Here, this is the part of the presentation that I delivered to the City Council on the 17th that included kind of the overview of the outreach plan. On the left-hand side, you'll see the already existing communication strategy that was put into place, including the bilingual mailer. On the right-hand side, with the exception of the poster at city facilities, these were the newer items that Teresa and Michael had composed, and the ones that I've referenced already. So the print media being for the Times Advocate, 5,000, print media for the Union Tribune being another 5,000, and the Univision being 7,500. They also explore the possibility of doing magnets on city vehicles, city vehicles specifically that are not moving, but that are like parked at different parks and locations. That was an idea. The deputy mayor and the council said they weren't as in favor of that, so that one was kind of taken off as a possibility. And then radio was explored, but then similar to the TV spots that Teresa just mentioned, being able to acquire the talent, write the scripting, doing all of that, doing radio advertisements became untenable. So that is basically the communications strategy that we have currently in place, with the exception of these items, up here and removing radio. And like I said before, the nice thing is that this commission has done a really good job of putting together a really coherent and I would say comprehensive strategy already that's going to accomplish quite a bit with this bilingual mailer. Doing the print media is going to help augment that too, and I think that's a benefit. And then obviously exploring even more targeted in something like Univision, I think has a good potential return on investment. So I think there's some value in doing that. If we go beyond that, it's really up to the commission's discretion, but once again, time is of the essence. And I want to emphasize once again that coming back to the council on Wednesday, based off of the feedback I had, and I was not anticipating the level of the scrutiny over the budget at that present moment, given the dynamic between the commission and the council. I would say that if we just come back specifically and say we want 12,500 or 17,500, or if you want to have a little buffer coming at 20,000, I have a feeling that would be fine. But also, it's not my decision to make. That's the commission's discretion, and you have to make that argument. And but I'm kind of in between here, trying to communicate to both. So hopefully that helps.
Okay. Quick question. So basically, again, just to clarify, so everyone's clear, right? Especially the visiting public. So we have about 4 items out of that outreach plan to vote on, right? Mm-hmm. And then based on the cost for those, that's going to adjust our budget, and we will vote here this evening on the final number, right? Yeah. So can we go like line by line and just vote line by line, and then that way come up with
yeah, that's a great idea. So
or is that like obvious?
No, that's totally fine.
Okay.
So these items are already approved. So the $20,000 already covers this, and it covers this posters at city facilities. magnets are off the table, radio is off of the table as far as feasibility, and text messages weren't included in the presentation to the city council because it was determined that it was not feasible given the opt-in clause. So if you would like to go through these three and take votes on them, or if you want to do one full motion with all three of them, that's fine. It's really up to your discretion. And I might need to hop back over here to make sure Commissioner Saldana, if you want to join the conversation, just feel free to at any moment. You're welcome to as well.
Thank you.
I did have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Okay, so just, again, we're all on the same page, is that the print media also includes online print?
I would have to have Teresa interject. Teresa, do you know if the print media also includes online advertisements as well?
For the Union Tribune, it does. For the Times Advocate, it does not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, can I make one other clarifying point
Please
about
do.
the
Yeah.
Univision? The Univision radio would be kind of the best way I can describe it is the on-air talent would essentially do what are called live reads. So they wouldn't be fully produced commercials like you would hear, as Zach referenced. It's just time and talent and acquiring all that. It was not conducive with the timeline, but they would be like the on-air talent doing the live reads of the copy we provide to them, if that makes sense.
Great. Yeah. So if you'd like to go forward, we can take motions on each individual item, or you can make a motion for all three of them, or only one, whatever you prefer.
Before we move forward, I know we had thrown around a lot of ideas throughout the year in terms of outreach, and the only one that can come to mind at the moment, besides the ones listed on the slide, was the idea to have some sort of partnership with small businesses and getting posters at on their windows, at their doors, coffee shops, restaurants, what have you. And so, right, what is that a marginal cost that could potentially fall under the posters at city facilities, or is that an additional cost that we have to?
That cost, I believe the printing of the cost is, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, I think it's like $1,000 to print all of these posters. And they would be at city-owned facilities, but also be working with the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Association, to distribute to all those businesses as well. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, I think it was $1,000, might have been $500, but I want to err on the higher side if I'm not mistaken.
Thanks, Zach. Yes, so we would be distributing we would have the posters printed and distribute them to the key partners. And we would also be printing additional for the commission, for each commissioner to have as well, so that you can leverage some of your partnerships and influence in the community as well. But we will work through, like Zach said, the DBA and the chamber to get those out to as many businesses who are willing to put them up.
So I suggest we go line by line on those three items. 3 serial votes, and then one final vote adopting our decision. Would that be appropriate?
So if you were to take you could do the 3 votes that you're approving those ones. I would take them individually, and I'll categorize them accordingly in the minutes. And then if you have a separate motion that you want to include for additional funding or something to that extent, I guess what I don't want you to do is go through and everyone say we approve all this and then take the vote. I think you should take your vote because we get into like a Brown Act issue there. But if you want to take a vote on each one and then that vote is final, that's fine.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I'll make a motion to approve the 6-week ad for the Times Advocate for the $5,000.
Correct.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? And then Commissioner Saldana? Approved. Motion approved 7-0. So Times Advocate will be included, and that's at a cost for $5,000. You can move forward to the next one, whoever would like to.
So for the UT, after what Teresa said, I think it would be beneficial, just because it is targeted in the Spanish language. And I just wanted to make that comment before making a motion in case anybody wants to discuss again.
Good point. So, Zach and
Yeah.
Teresa, so you had mentioned us getting a spot in the Spanish UT mailer with the cost that we have currently for the UT campaign. It includes the Spanish mailer and all that you discussed. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what would be included in that $5,000 is 3, possibly 4 Sunday North County local print ads in the regular Tribune, but the North County local section. And then 2 runs in the SDUT and Espanol, and that's a Saturday publication only. So that would be 2 dates in December. And then the digital component that I had discussed about following around people with Escondido zip codes. And so that would be a total spend of $5,000 for those 3 items.
And if it's helpful, I do have one comment from the public on the Union Tribune that just came in. It's for the Union Tribune. This is from Val. Does the North County not have a significant reach to Escondido readers? Teresa, I'd actually rely on you if you have any answer to that question. So the question, once again, does the North County not have a significant reach to Escondido readers?
Zach, I'm not really comfortable answering that question because I don't have their readership numbers in front of me, but I can inquire with the rep. But waiting on that, hearing the answer to that will delay our ability to move forward should the commission choose to do so.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that. Great. Sorry. Back to the commission. Sorry.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 4-week advertisement with the Union Tribune.
In that motion.
All right. All in favor? Motion approved, 7-0. Great. And for Univision, yeah.
I motion to approve the $7,500 of the Univision campaign.
I second.
All those in favor? Motion approved, 7-0. Great. Okay, so as of right now, the way it stands, we have $17,500 allocated to specific line items that can be brought to the council on December 1st by Chair Case. Now it's up to your discretion if you want to have further discussion or we just move forward with that and then we can come back at a later time. Because as of this present moment, we do not have additional specified funding that or projects or outreach that we have tied to this. So I leave that up to your discretion because you can always make an additional request at a later time. The next 2 council meetings, just for everyone's awareness, December 15th and then January 12th. The January 12th meeting, by the time that'll have happened, we will have already had 3 public hearings. But all of this public outreach that we've just approved will have occurred by that time if the council approves the $17,500, which we should anticipate they will given the feedback they provided during the last meeting. So that's just all that context for the next stage of the discussion.
So I think the thing that we need to think about is recommendations for what could happen, 4 weeks from now. Like, what are we not thinking of? So I think it'd be good for each of us to kind of think through that, to be ready for the 15th, if we do meet before then, to have more proposed if that's what we feel is necessary. As of right now, I can't think of anything off the top of my head to get that 17.5 number up, so I'm comfortable just moving forward with that with the council.
One question and then one thought. So going back to the text message component being out of the picture, right? That would bring, so we would have the 17.5 number, which for the items that we're getting ready to vote on, right? And then take away out of that additional, what is that, 32 and a half? I'm not gonna embarrass myself.
Yeah, out of 50. Sorry.
Correct, so, so out of 50. So as it stands now, with, we would be at 240, and then whatever's we would have like a $20,000 contingency budget, basically.
So I think that the difference being, during the last council meeting, the council did not take an affirmative vote to approve the $50,000 allocation. They did not also take a vote against it. They tabled it and basically kicked it back to the commission at this meeting to come back with a slightly modified proposal. So I think operating from the framework of the $50,000 is probably not the best right now, only because that money hasn't been allocated. So we're not necessarily subtracting it from money that's been allocated. We're subtracting that from finance that had been requested. But even at that time, when that initial $50,000 was requested, we didn't have them tied to anything specific because Teresa hadn't put together the proposal yet for this additional outreach. So that being the case, coming in, and if you want to ask for additional funding, we could do so. I might do that as part of 2 requests to the council, in the same item, but request a 17.5, and if you want to build in a contingency, you could do that, but maybe it would also behoove us to just get the 17.5, execute these items, and we'll have done that. We'll have done the public outreach via the citywide bilingual mailer, and we can gauge by the 3rd Redistricting Commission public hearing what the feedback is and if we need to up it again. But I leave that to you. What I want to avoid, and I'll speak very candidly, I think that it's very important what the Redistricting Commission is doing as an independent body, and I don't want the commission placed in a position where they're in an adversarial or relationship with the city council, because we want to be cooperative entities because of the importance of the end product the commission is going to produce. And I would just say that given the feedback I received from the council last time, I would feel very comfortable for the commission to come forward with something that we feel confident is going to get approved, and it doesn't get us in a back and forth with council too much. That's not my decision to make, that's the commission, but I'm just giving you my assessment, my very honest, candid assessment as city clerk. I want the robust debate happening with the council when it comes to them looking at the maps and when you guys have produced the maps, if that makes sense.
Got you. So my comment then was, and thank you for clearing that up and giving your advice. My comment was, then the missing piece of this puzzle is a contingency buffer number, if at all, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So with that being said, the 17.5, obviously I believe that we can get that approved. But with that being said, I do not want to run into this situation again, and we keep, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, we almost missed some of this, the print media opportunities, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. It would have delayed the process for us to get some of this done.
Okay, so if that upsets anybody or bothers anybody, that's fine. But in any other industry, you don't operate with a $300 contingency budget. And this is, right? And so to echo your point, and I'll make sure to emphasize this, we were vetted and selected for a reason, and trustworthiness, and prudence were some of those qualities. So maybe I'll just emphasize also that with our planning, we don't anticipate that we're going to use this buffer. But with that being said, given our mission and the fact that it's crunch time, I think that we can be trusted and that we need a contingency buffer. So in my mind, so that, again, I'm clear, and I guess I would have a suggestion that we approve the 17.5 and then have a vote on what the buffer is going to be. That way, we have a hard number, and then on Wednesday, we can present to the council line by line if they want to approve it. Not if they do, so be it. We're going to do our job with the resources that we have.
Yeah, so I would recommend we have 2 separate items for the council to consider. The 17.5, which is what we just voted on for the print media, and then the Univision. I don't think that we should, I think it's too granular if we give them the option to approve 5.5, 7,500. I think as a commission, we're saying that this is necessary, this is what we think is right. So you're either taking the 17.5 or not. And then, like Chair Case was saying, presenting a separate item for a contingency, explaining the fact that, we were within 3 days of not being able to get this vital, outreach done, and we don't want to come into that again. So I would propose and recommend we do a $10,000 buffer. I know that's much less than the $50,000 we were considering, but given what we just saw with these 3 items and how much they do cost, I think $10,000 is quite reasonable.
Just a couple of thoughts. Working in public education and budgeting, just so you guys are aware, is that they want everything itemized. There is no buffer, especially with budgeting with the public. It's either you get the money or you don't, because you've itemized everything. And I know that it doesn't go with the norm of industry, but with public education and city, is that everything has to be itemized. And so I get why the city is doing this. And I like your proposal of having them separate and having that $10,000, I don't think is a far reach. If we ask for any more, I think we're being, it's a little too much. Yeah. Thank you for your comments. I like that.
So basically, we're breaking up this item in 2 different bills. Hopefully, right? Okay, sounds kind of familiar, but.
Commissioner Reynoso, yeah.
I like the direction we're heading right now. I was wondering if we can have Teresa chair, just as part of your research and putting together the budget for this outreach plan. Were there any other items that your team had considered that you looked into the cost for that aren't on this list? So I'm wondering, for example, had you looked into the ad campaign or an ad campaign with any of the other local stations, so the local NPR station, KPBS or KUSI, or the local NBC, ABC, NBC stations, or just any other potential outreach communications pieces that aren't listed here?
I think, thanks for the question. Everything that you see is what would be feasible and tools that we are currently using in our toolkit that are tried and true, that we know and work. I didn't do a lot of outreach to television because, quite honestly, even with this increase in the budget, television is very expensive and has such a broad reach. When we're trying to really hone in on a very specific community in the county, it's best to go with the markets that are really talking to them, and that's where the Times Advocate plays a really good partnership with us, because it is our hyper-local paper, in addition to the options that are laid out with the Union Tribune. I am a little concerned about this discussion around a $10,000 buffer. I would love to hear from the commission what kinds of things you would want to use that money for, because as you're being part of this conversation, putting together this media buy at this point in the game is covering us for through the campaign, either all the way through December into a couple weeks in January. So if in mid-January you decide you need to do some additional outreach, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to add any traditional media onto that after those campaigns have concluded. So I would love to hear the ideas and things that our team can start looking at feasibility of what you would use that contingency money for.
So, one, I think the budget is not strictly focused on marketing, and the whole reason for contingency buffers is because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So there's nothing that I can really think of. I think that we have put together quite extensive list of ways to reach out. But with that being said, the buffer is not exclusively for public outreach. And then in regards to the vice chair's comment, thank you for that insight. And I know that you deal with budgets on a regular basis. But from my experience, a contingency buffer is a line item, right? At least in my experience. So that's just my thought on that. Yeah.
So I will say, in the private sector, we deal with contingency budgets much the same way, where we don't like them. But what they're normally used for is risk, right? So if we have risk out there that we would need to cover and we can think of what we would need to cover, that's where it becomes appropriate. With the Omicron development of the new strain of COVID, if we, for some reason, have to completely go all virtual, what about folks who don't have the ability to join in that regard?
Yeah, great question. So to that point, and I'll speak to that and then a couple other points regarding the budget. We are currently planning, based off the Commission's direction, to have hybrid meetings for all of our public hearings, both virtual and in person. We're actually testing out the video right now for that as how it's going to work when we're on our off-site facilities. So if for some reason the pandemic worsens and we have to have everyone virtual, we would still open up a possibility for someone to participate in person we would have a physical person present. You know, we did this during the city council meetings, and if you recall, we had myself, the mayor, the city attorney, no one else, but we could have in that moment, if the council would provide direction, had one member of the public come in at a time and speak into the microphone and do that. I would suggest that would be the same approach we would take. They would wear a mask, socially distance, but we could accommodate that type of environment. As it stands right now, that is not what we're doing, but that wouldn't add additional cost to what we currently have budgeted. As we're looking at our budget right here as it's set, everything is allocated for. There's nothing of this will change. The translation costs will be the same. The contracts are established for the in-person and the virtual translation. Public notices will cost $10,000. Demographer contract is already executed. So none of this will shift. The only thing we're changing is basically increasing public outreach. To have a contingency is nice and it could be helpful, but one thing we might consider is that the council can act quickly if we come before them with a specified request. If we come to them and let's say middle of January, we've gone through this public outreach and they say, hey, we need to do X, Y, or Z, we could come and say we want the $10,000 on January 12th. And at that time, like I said, we'll have had 3 public hearings and we could do that. And that, if you go back and listen to the council meeting for the discussion I had with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the council, that was specifically what Deputy Mayor Morosco said. He said, if you want to come and ask for 10,000 now, 10,000 later, he said, we'll just do that. And I think that was kind of their preferred approach. So we could do 2 different things. We could either come at it and say we want to ask for the 17.5, which we're going to do no matter what on Wednesday, and the 10, or we could say let's do the 17.5 now and then assess what happens, and then mid-January at the January 12th meeting say we want an additional X amount, 10,000. So those are some options.
Can you describe a bit from the perspective of the Brown Act if in mid-January an unforeseen cost that we haven't considered comes up and scheduling an additional meeting like this becomes difficult? Would we be able to, as a body, make that approval and ask at one of the public workshops, and then it goes to whatever the next city council meeting? Like, we don't necessarily have to create a separate public notice and meeting process for that?
Correct. Yeah, Commissioner Reynoso, great question. So the public hearings they will have, they will be agendized, and we will have a portion of the meeting that will be for other business that's not just solely focused on the map drawing, just for that type of contingency where we could have other items that you're going to vote on and discuss. When it comes to the council agenda is published 1 week in advance of the council meeting. So to get an item on the agenda, it would have to be for that, unless we had an emergency situation where the council can call an emergency meeting, basically a 24-hour notice. It's signed by the mayor and we can do an emergency declaration. There's a certain number of statutes we have to hit to make that happen, but we could. If Omicron becomes an issue, the governor issues another executive order or something, and it's January, we're at the January 11th meeting at the commission, and we decide, oh no, we need $10,000 on January 12th, we could conceivably make that happen. So it would require a bit of moving on our part, but it's feasible. Any other questions or thoughts or insights on this?
So basically the idea is because of, and that's a really great idea. There's some really smart people on this commission, you know that? I'm not included in that list.
Oh, yeah, you are. You guys are all.
So basically the idea is, because we're having a public hearing that's noticed, when January comes around, if there is an emergency, we basically have like every 2 to 3 days an opportunity. Okay.
To address that.
So with that being said, though, there is no risk or harm in asking for that $10,000 buffer. Like, the worst they can say is no.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at our schedule, I think it's like 20-something meetings from the 5th until the 23rd. No, seriously.
So you have there's 6 public hearings in January. Then you have 2 additional just normal commission meetings at the end of January to review the maps and approve the maps. 3 additional public hearings in February. I think 2 additional meetings in the end of February. Then a few more meetings in March. So yeah, you're at that 15 to 20 meetings or something along those lines. And then you have the flexibility to call additional meetings as needed. But these are just the meetings we have currently established. You will have plenty of time to make those kinds of tactical decisions as we're going through the process. And yeah.
Right. Okay. So again, as far as the $10,000 buffer ask, there's no risk of harm there. So I think that we should add it. And just the idea of 20 different meetings from January to March, I think it's very likely that we could run into a situation where we will need those funds,
Yeah.
So it's very dynamic. I think something, as a former risk manager, no, seriously, in the Marine Corps, so lots of risks there, right?
Yeah, that's totally up to the commission's discretion. And just once again, I will reiterate that point of just wanting to return to the council with maybe the direction or the insight they had provided, and then that's up to your discretion as the independent body to how you want to go about it on Wednesday.
So I think, building off what Zach said, it would be an act of goodwill to not approach them about a contingency line. I think that the 17.5 is a lot less than what we had originally anticipated. It'll probably be a lot more pleasing to the council to go from 50 down to 17.5. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence for the contingency line, especially because what Zach just said, like if something comes up because I think we've all, been through this for the last 7 months, 8 months, right? And we've gotten to this point where we're almost ready to move forward and start. And we haven't thought about anything else to spend the money on except for this outreach. So I'm thinking if we can't think of anything right now at this moment, that would leave whatever we think of in the future to be the result of an emergency. And if that's the case, then we could have the council move quickly. So I think I'm on the fence with the contingency line now.
I think the will of the council is becoming clear as far as the second measure for the 10,000. But I would like to remind the council that we thought 200,000 was going to be adequate, and it was not. And I think that, I don't know if you guys are aware, but from what I understand in in watching that city council meeting, you've been sort of jumping through hoops for the last couple of days, right? Trying to figure out, and again, I stress, we almost lost out on these print media opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I'm more than willing to ask for that. And I don't know, I don't want to sound antagonistic, but we're not really here to please city council. We're here to put out a product that's going to last a decade. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I'm going to hush about that second measure.
If I just might add just one quick thing. So as it relates to the work of the commission, I just from the standpoint want to commend the commission, because from the legal perspective of what you're required to do, you've hit everything that you need to do from the consent decree and gone above and beyond that with the bilingual mailer and doing the additional public outreach. So by taking this next step and doing additional public outreach, you're exceeding that even more so. So, but I just want you to feel like if we only get 17.5, it's actually it's still a really good thing that you guys are doing that. And then the 10,000 additional, if we get that at some point in time in the future, would be great. But at the same token, if there isn't a specific time to it right now, I just think of it from the 30,000 foot view of like the dynamic between the commission and the council is a delicate balance. Like I said, the consent decree, the word necessary is up for legal interpretation, and I've spent time discussing this with the city manager and the city attorney, and the nuance of this process. I don't want us to get in a situation where we lose the bigger picture of the end day, the product that you're talking about that's going to last for 10 years, that everyone's on board. We're not trying to please the council's not trying to please you, but thinking about it from a working relationship, we will be in a situation come March and in April where the council is going to be looking at the maps and deciding whether the maps are good, and they have a legal authority to kick it back to the commission. And I just think setting that tone going into that process, we want to make sure that's as amenable as possible while maintaining the independence of this body. And I do want to add too, just to Commissioner Clemens' point, when presenting this information to the to the city council a couple weeks ago, I did go over in detail, and these are the items right here, what the consent decree spelled out for the requirements of each one of the commissioners that's currently sitting on this body, and what they are allowed to do, not allowed to do, how they're not allowed to run for office after 5 years, the application process, how they were appointed by the selection panel, so they understand that this body is independent, and they do that is something that has been clearly articulated. I know that Chair Case will once again reiterate that on Wednesday, but I want to make sure you understand that they are clear that this body is very different than another, like the Planning Commission or the Library Board or the Public Art Commission. You guys are sanctioned by the consent decree to fulfill your duty, so that's clearly understood by the council. Any other questions or thoughts? No? Okay. Then I think from what I'm understanding with the commission, then we move on. I'm going to look and just make sure there's no other public comments, but I believe that we're good on this item, and then it'll just be commissioner reports. So let me just so there's no requirement to vote on that if there's not a motion or second, but with all the information we have, we can come and do that at any one of the public hearings in January. No other comments from the public. Our next item is future agenda items, and this actually kind of ties into when we want to have our next meeting. Going into the next January, February timeframe, as we just discussed, there's going to be quite a few meetings that are happening, so I leave it up to the commission's discretion. We do not have anything specific to talk about in December as of this present moment, so we could just start at our next meeting, which will be on January 5th, and that would be our first public hearing, and we're right into it. So otherwise, if you want, we could have a meeting in December or not. I leave that up to your preference.
Just a quick question. So if we do not have a meeting in December, will we have an opportunity, a representative of the commission go and kind of do a site survey beforehand, right?
Oh, site surveys have already taken, you can if you want to, but site surveys have already taken place from myself and my team. So we've already gone and assessed all of the different schools and community centers. So everything's good to go.
Okay, so no requirement on us to.
You just show up. Yeah, that's the most important. Yeah, so yeah, we want to make this as easy. This is because of all the great planning that you guys have done over the last year. So you just show up and represent the community the way that you feel best. That's what we want. Yeah, so if no other suggestions for a December meeting, then I would say our next meeting is in January. That would mean that really for future agenda items, it's going to be census data, it's going to be map drawing, and then we'll have a broader item at the end of each meeting if we need a contingency vote on something. So basically that'll kind of be our next get together, which is great. Any thoughts or questions? I want to make sure I'm not. Okay, perfect. Commissioner reports and disclosures. When we start with Commissioner Saldana, then we'll go to Commissioner Dowan and around the dais. Commissioner Saldana, any reports or disclosures from over the last month?
Nothing from me.
Great, thanks so much. Commissioner Dowan. Great. Commissioner Reyes?
I do work with Marianne, who is the facilitator of CAFE. So that's a virtual, it was in person, now it's virtual, with a bunch of like community folk and different social services and just a lot of people who attend CAFE. She did propose that we can present January 28th. So I know Teresa Collins had mentioned that. So she wanted to know if that date works for the Redistricting Commission presentation to take place.
So having our commission or a member of the commission presenting on January 28th.
Yeah, I mean, it could be commission member, it could be the media, our media group that's doing the media and presentations and stuff like that. Whoever would like to present that information for community partners to know and share with their network as well. That is January 28th, and GAFE meetings take place at 8 a.m. and will be virtual, so slide presentation would have to take place. And it's just like 20-30 minutes, and then questions get asked, and it's a pretty chill, laid-back presentation.
Yeah, as of right now, the January 28th, there are no commission meetings. We have a meeting on January 27th, and then the next one's on the 31st. So, and we have time to develop this, but I'm happy to attend that. If any of the commissioners would like to be a part of that, I'm more than happy to be involved with that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just, mark that? I think she just wanted just to make sure that, okay.
Perfect. Yeah, you can.
I will let her know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Commissioner Jurgensen. Nothing. Great. Chair Case.
I was interviewed by the Times Advocate, and the article can be found in the current paper.
Great. Commissioner Reynoso.
None.
Commissioner Clemens.
I just want to thank you, Zach, for all your hard work and your team's hard work too.
Thanks, you guys.
I mean, we go through a lot here, and you really help us a lot, so I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Appreciate you. In all sincerity, you guys do a great job. It's an honor to serve alongside you, and I'm excited for where this is going. Great. With all that being said, I don't see anything else for today's agenda. Chair Case, anything else you want to add?
One saved round, as we
Yep.
call it. There are no restrictions that we know of for doing the earned media, correct?
No. Yeah. I would just use your own discretion as commissioners. Once again, you're appointed because you have good discretion in that regard. But if you do an interview, just think about what you're speaking on and how you're answering questions on behalf of the commission. That's all. Yeah. Great. Well, wonderful. If anything else comes up, feel free to email me, let me know. I will get you all the information from Q2 Data with regarding like voting rights and all that stuff as she provides that information to us. Otherwise, if I don't see you before, happy holidays, and look forward to seeing you on January 5th.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy holidays.
All right. Thank you, everyone who attended via Zoom as well. Hope you guys have a great night.
Bye.
Holidays,
Bye.
Jeff.